And now at this time, I'd like to introduce my good friend Doug Brown. Many of you know Doug if you're from the state of New Mexico. He's been a businessman in New Mexico for a long, long time. I met him actually back when he was in the financial services. He's done marvelous things for the state of New Mexico, and occasionally is the kind of person that has to be called into action when we have ethical problems in our state. To wit, we ended up in our state, for those of you who may be recent here, with 2 state treasurers in prison at the same time. And that's probably a record for a state. It's really not an easy thing to do, to get 2 state treasurers in prison at the same time. But Doug was asked by the governor, the most recent governor, to go to the state treasurer's office and begin to straighten out the issues that we had. But that's the kind of guy he is. He's kind of a go-to guy to do the right thing. And very recently, in the last year or so, the University of New Mexico Anderson School was looking for a dean. They had a national search, and I guess they had several candidates, don't know how many. But in the last analysis, the University of New Mexico said we have within our own community the right kind of guy. A businessman, he has a little bit of my background. We both have gone over to the other side of politics a couple of times in our life. But we both have business backgrounds. I believe the University of New Mexico was very wise in choosing a former businessman, but in large part one of the great community leaders in Albuquerque in our state, the Dean of the Anderson School, Doug Brown.
Thank you, Gary, for a kind introduction. And it really is, one of the side benefits for me is the opportunity to collaborate once more with Gary. In fact, we've expanded this collaboration beyond the ethics environment into working together on a marketing program that should be a lot of fun and instructive for our students, working on an investment program with the State Investment Council. Together, we had a separate meeting about that just recently. I think that's one of the answers to this proliferation of colleges that we're over-resourced in this state. And if we can begin to do more together, you make the bows and we'll make the arrows kind of thing, I think that's going to be one of the solutions to getting a more efficient, more effective educational program here. I want to pick up a little bit on something that Wendy mentioned about, gee, is ethics all the more important in difficult economic times? Well, it's always important. I think we baseline can agree on that. But it becomes a little more important in that I always like the statement that character isn't something that is created. Character is something that is revealed. Okay. So when the tough time comes, when the pressure comes, how does one respond? You know, in an ethical way with character, or does one try to find an unethical way around something? So I think because of the economic pressures, because of the difficulties, it is all the more important now, I think, to make sure that our ethical house is in order. I want to start with a topic maybe that says something like this. What kind of a person inspires you? Okay? Think about the types of people who have inspired you during your lifetime. Maybe occasionally a political leader, a coach, parents, I hope, parents, teachers, so on, military leaders from time to time, somebody you look up to. Who is that voice that you hear when you're thinking about a problem, that you're kind of almost mentally having a conversation with? That's somebody that has inspired you, someone who's led you in your life. Well, teachers, professors, university administrators, all of us, we are that to many of our young people. Okay? We have a responsibility as educational leaders to exemplify more than others a top, flawless, ethical standard, because there's an exaggerated effect to the things we do. The first time I ever became a manager, and this was in a banking organization, I realized, oh my gosh, the littlest things I do are kind of picked up on by the team. If I come up the walkway and pick up a little piece of trash and toss it in the bin on my way, it's noticed, okay? Or if maybe I just want to park for just a few minutes my car in a handicap zone, it's just going to be a minute, that gets noticed. And these things have an exaggerated impact on the way people accept or reject my position as a leader. And so as educators, one of the things I wanted to make sure at the University of New Mexico we did, here we are, we're missionaries, I think, for the wonderful message and construct that Linda and Barb have come up with at Daniels Fund, and there's so many good things coming from it. But how are we doing internally within our school with our students? And I think we've all seen the stats that there's a whole lot of cheating that goes on in high schools and in colleges, nationwide, for all I know, worldwide. Well, doggone, let's see what we can do to get our house in as good order as we can, you know, in concert with going out and spreading the message to others. And so we started at the beginning of this last year an honesty task force. And it's not as simple as just standing up somewhere and saying to everybody, okay, do the right thing. You peel the layers of that onion back and you learn some things. Like, what is cheating anymore? For example, 15 years ago or so, if you could not take a calculator into a math exam. I mean, come on, do that old terrible square root thing, you know? Well now, I mean, how nuts would you be not to take a calculator? In fact, in advanced math courses, you're required to take in graphing calculators and so on. Look how the standards have shifted. Well, how has good old Google changed things, you know, in terms of information gathering? I mean, a student can legitimately say to you, why should I have to remember that the 17th President of the United States is Andrew Johnson, when in about 9 seconds I can call that information up here, okay? So, why is it okay for me to take my little PDA into the exam and wail away and answer these questions? Well, why should you make me memorize all this stuff? I'm not going to do that in business. You know, when I get out in the business world, I'm going to be doing the efficient, effective thing. So why are you making me go through this? Is this just some kind of harassment? Well, I contend that to the extent that you stock this database instead of just this one can make better judgments. One can exercise critical thinking. One can do a better job of stimulating one's creativity if you can bring more information, more examples, more lateral thinking to bear. I think it's very important. But we have to have an agreement among the student body and with the professors as to what's okay and what's not okay. Well, that's phase one of our honesty task force. Phase two is making sure that the students buy in. We've got big student participation in this. That they agree, and finally we get sort of a code of conduct, a code of process put down, and it's understood and it's bought in. Secondly, we need to make sure that that the profs help out. Now, if a professor's sitting there reading the newspaper all during the exam and not proctoring it, something like that, or if they're just allowing these little group collaborations to go on when they're not supposed to, clearly they're aiding and abetting. Or if there's just only multiple choice exams, and I can look it over, a good old smart Gary as an 11B, and I'll circle that thing, that makes that exam is pretty easy to compliment. Harden the target a bit. And finally, enforce those standards. A lot of times we can't do much as educators because we've had such uneven enforcement that you try to bring some penalty to bear, and they say, well, you didn't do it last time, and how come, and this and that and the other thing, and it all melts down. Well, if you have rigorous, standard, consistent enforcement, then I think everybody understands the rules, know what to do. We established one the other day, there was this, I'd like to think we're making progress on it, but cheating goes on. One of the professors came to me and said, gee, what do I do? What do you think we should do about this? I was grading this paper, pretty good paper, and I tentatively gave it an 80. And then about 5 pages later, up comes another paper, and it's absolutely identical paper. Uh-oh. And so we talked about it, and I said, well, it was an 80 paper, right? He said, okay, well, why don't you then, be Solomon-like, give them each a 40. Or, if you find out who in the internet actually wrote that paper, give that person an 80 and these two bozos zeros. So, I think it's very important to decide what you do under those circumstances and What happens when it's a repeat performance? And as always in life, it's the cover-up sometimes that greatly worsens the situation. So if the student, say, immediately says, I know, I was in a hurry, I didn't have time to study that exam, I had a big work burden and family things going on, I shouldn't have done it, and I admit it, and I regret that. Well, maybe there's a lesson learned. But if they try to smoke it by, no, I didn't really cheat, and so on and so forth, when they just absolutely prima facie did, that maybe is another set of circumstances. So I think you have to define all this thing, work this out, and once we get those cultures established in our place, I think that's a better foundation for us to build upon to spread the message. I just so applaud the leadership that the Daniels Fund has given. Look at this room. I mean, it's amazing what you guys started. It's been a joy to work together. And I was mentioning we deans have become a lot closer in our friendship and our collaboration and our association because of it. We're going to a dean's conference in Phoenix next month, and a bunch of us are all getting together for dinner. I think those are very worthwhile side benefits, but Barb and Linda, thank you so much. And thank you, Gary, for hosting us at a fine conference, and have a good conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doug.